Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere and welcome to the NicheCache. We are recording this on Monday, the 23rd of December. Big old Aotearoa sporting podcast for your Christmas needs, wants, and desires. We may or may not be doing a podcast next week. We'll see how we go, but we're definitely going to have a big old Aotearoa sporting chat today, so tap in. And we'll still be writing about Aotearoa sport. Got lots of stuff coming your way. So make sure you're tuned into the NicheCache. We obviously don't want to encourage you to be on social media. Like, get off social media. Go to the beach without your phone. Go for a walk. Get out there around Aotearoa and enjoy your time offline. And then if you want to tap in, there are many ways you can tap in, tune into the NicheCache. The best way is probably just signing up to our newsletter every Monday and Friday via Substack, thenichecache.substack.com, because all the NicheCache is right there for you. The links, the yarns, the podcast, the clips, it all comes into that newsletter, and then you don't need to be on your social media. But if you are addicted to your social media, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We'll be doing all the Aotearoa sporting broadcasting stuff that you need over the next couple of weeks. We'll just see how the podcast goes. We might be doing one next Monday. We'll see how we go. We can't guarantee it, but we are here today on a Monday to make sure we've got a pre-Christmas podcast for you. Weird old weekend of Aotearoa sport, considering we had Auckland FC get absolutely smoked at Mount Smart. The Wellington Phoenix, they kind of got smoked over in Sydney against Western Sydney, so that was good for them. The White Ferns, what do you know? They lost against Australia, as one would expect. And speaking of expecting losing, the Breakers lost again. So shout out to them. Quick check on the Breakers. They are second to last, 7-10. I'm still baffled at the way they have tipped down the NBL ladder. They were once at the top a few weeks ago. Now they are second to last. So, hate to say I told you so, but, well, you told me and I told you.
I think a few people saw this coming when
The
when they
Breakers
started fiddling with stuff that didn't need fixing.
Yeah, they're second to last, so shout out to them. Lots of losing happened this weekend, but we did have the Wellington Phoenix women grabbing a win in the A-League against Sydney FC, and that takes them into fifth on the ladder. So shout out to the Wellington Phoenix women. Couple of wins at this win especially was at the Fortress of Porirua Park. Shout out to the rain delay, thunderstorm delay in Wellington for that game. Grace Jale scored a goal. Who else scored the goal?
Zoe McMeekin scored her first goal for the Phoenix, which means her first goal in professional football.
Lovely stuff there. So the Wellington Phoenix women, big winners of the weekend, as well as the Tauranga Whai, who won the Tauihi basketball competition. They defeated the Tokomanawa Queens, and you have been saying a lot that you're not, just a bit iffy on the overseas flavour of Tauihi. I'm a bit more chill on it. I don't really mind because, like the Super Smash, actually, I think the Tauihi and the New Zealand NBL competitions, they know exactly what they are. They know what they are. They know what they're there for. And I think ultimately it helps New Zealand basketball. So all the overseas players, you got some local flavor, local talent, learning from those players. The Kiwi basketball community gets to rally behind some high quality basketball. So I'm a bit more chill on the overseas player, the abundance of overseas players who dominate the minutes in Tauihi, especially for the better teams. I don't really mind it. Again, I think Tauihi, like the Super Smash that we're going to see a lot of over the next few weeks, it knows what type of competition it is. And I think that's just cool to see. With that in mind, most of the players who played the most minutes in this final, especially for the Tauranga Whai, funnily enough, most of them are overseas professionals. And no disrespect to them, don't really care about them. But I do care about the young Aotearoa players who were in that Tauranga Whai team. Can I just go, I'll just go down the list of minutes per game in the final. And you can tell me if they are a local player or not. A. Joens.
Ashley Jones? Nope. She is Australian, I think.
M. Dale.
McKenna Dale? Yes. Tall Ferns International.
32
Had a great
minutes.
game too, 16 points.
Second for minutes in this game, as you said, 16 points. Second for the most points for the Tauranga Whai. M. Jaeger.
No. MVP of the game, but also Australian, Morgan Jaeger.
M. Cowling.
Kayla Cowling is, I think, American.
L. Snyder.
Not Kiwi. Lena Snyder.
L. McSpadden.
Nope.
J. Kirasome.
Yes, Jade Kurasame is a New Zealander.
K. Smiler.
Kaylee Smiler, also a New Zealander.
Bang. And then we got 4 players who didn't get on the court. E. Rogers, E. Langton. I know this one, Palis Hokianga Heather. And S. Rogers. I'm assuming they're Kiwis because they didn't play.
You'd be correct.
Bang on. So we got M. Dale, Mackenzie Dale, Kirasome, and Smiler as the 3 Kiwis who got game time in the final. So A, that tells you what we're talking about with the Tauihi competition and how the minutes are shared around between the different players. But again, not too fussed about that because the Tauihi competition knows what it is, knows the product it's delivering and the way it fits into the wider basketball landscape. So that's all good. Tell me about some of these Kiwis and their efforts in this championship run for the Tauranga Whai, Dale, Kirasome, and Smiler.
Yeah, well, I'd like to also talk about Hokianga and Langton, who are both Tall Ferns internationals over the past 12 months, but yeah, they didn't get to play. It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Because I agree, it's very, very important to have that clarity of like what you are as a league. I think you could do with one less import and still have the same, just boost up one side of the scales up a little bit more and find it a little more. But whatever. One thing we've seen about the Tauihi over the first couple of years of its existence is that it is a little bit fluctuating because they're willing to do stuff. They're willing to experiment a little bit and try things out. So if this was an experiment and they decide, maybe that was a little bit too much on the other, we can get the same effects while still giving another 40 minutes per night to Kiwi players. But
it's also important to note that they do have the Rapid League as well.
They do have the Rapid League as well. So the Rapid League is a pretty handy innovation. I could do without being told how innovative it is every time I see anything about it. I probably don't need to be reminded of how groundbreaking or whatever it is, but it is a very effective and helpful aspect to boost up those players outside of the starting lineup by giving them some decent competitive minutes as well. So that's all good stuff. Mentioned Tokomano Queens as well, had Lauren Hippolyte. I don't know if she was fit or not. She has been injured for a bit, but she was a DMP, as was Grace Hunter. So there were 4 Tall Ferns internationals in this final who didn't get on the court at all, which is a little bit of I would like to be able to see up-and-coming players and emerging players rather than just you only see the ones who I already know about because they're already full internationals. In fact, some full internationals aren't even getting into the rotations, but it is a high-quality level of basketball, so it was good stuff. And there was definitely a high-quality final, and amidst that, Morgan Jaeger scored 19 points. She was the best player on the court. Good contributions all around her, but those contributions included McKenna Dale, who especially I think in the first half, because she had 3 of her 6 3-point attempts, 16 points, 4 rebounds. Don't need to read into the turnovers, but there were 3 of them. Get a steal, a block, doing a little bit of everything there. McKenna Dale is her parents were over in the crowd as well. They kept cutting to her parents in the crowd and pointing them out. Her parents are American, but she was born here, largely raised in America, but is just, dual heritage. She played youth age stuff for New Zealand, and then she went over to college, and then she's back now and is playing in the last couple of years at Tauihi. Played a little bit in last year's Australian NBL as well, which is no longer really an option because they've moved the season of the Tauihi to clash with the Aussie NBL. So there's only a couple of players now. There were only ever sort of 3 or 4 normally per season. Last year there were 5 or 6 or 7, I think, a couple of them being dual nationals though, between Kiwi and Oz. But yeah, a few of those, like Ezra McGoldrick playing for mainland and McKenna Dale playing for Tauranga, was another one where they might have been able to be fringe players in the Aussie stuff. They were fringe players in the Aussie stuff last year. They've come back to play bigger roles for New Zealand teams instead in Tauihi. So, sweet as, what do you got to do? McKenna Dale, yeah, is a player who I think can be very important for the Tall Ferns moving forward if she gets that kind of like consistency and a bit more experience and whatever, because she's a shooter. She's someone who can hit 3-pointers. She's someone who can take over a game, and they got a lot of good defenders in the Tall Ferns ranks. They got a lot of good sort of like hustlers and dribblers and screen setters and those kind of things that you expect from Kiwi basketball. Like, the strengths you see in the Tall Blacks are largely the strengths you see in the Tall Ferns as well. They could use a few more shooters, a little bit more floor spacing and stuff like this. And some of their big tournaments, like the Olympic qualifiers and even at the Asia Cup, where they did really well last time, you saw this where it was like, if Charlize Ledger-Walker is playing, which she was in the Asia Cup, which she wasn't in the Olympic qualifying, maybe she can just take over a game because she's world class. But beyond that, you sort of, and maybe Talia Tupaia as well when she's available, which again, she was at the Asia Cup, although battled through some injuries there, wasn't for the Olympic qualifying. Those two maybe can get you some sort of like jump shots to spread the load outside of Penina Davidson, just down low doing stuff. And obviously, a few of their cutters and slashes, but McKenna Dale is someone who absolutely could add to that and become a very, very crucial player for the international team as well. And she was a very crucial player doing that exact same kind of role for the Tauranga Whai during the season. She got moved into the starting lineup sort of midway through, and they were 1-5 after 6 games, I think. And then they went on a big winning streak to get into the. I think don't think it needed a big winning streak because there's like 5 teams and the top 4 make the semifinals, so it's not too hard to get in there. But they did find form. The point is, even though getting to the top 4 isn't necessarily a crazy mountain to scale, performing there, being at your best when it comes to playoff time, that's the tricky part, and that's the thing that they really locked on, because they had a great performance in the semifinals, great performance in the final. They really blew away Tokomanoa quite early. Like they got sort of a double-digit lead pretty early in the game and basically held on to that lead the entire rest of the way. It was really impressive, really sort of ruthless competitive stuff. It was great. And yeah, McKenna Dell absolutely helped set that tone. And then also Jade Kurosami, 10 points off the bench, 2 of 2 from 3-point range. A couple rebounds on top of that as well. She was plus 15 in her time on the court, so big impacts there from the other major Kiwi, and then yeah, Kaylee Smiler as well, who is fresh back from college. I don't follow the college stuff close enough to be able to remember off the top of my head which school she went to, but I know she went to a school where she was with another New Zealander on one of the on her team. I forget which, but yeah, 6 points for her off the bench as well. Also had a 3-pointer, plus 7 in her 14 minutes. So good stuff all around there from those 3 Kiwis who get to add their names to the Tauihi champions list. We've had 3 years of Tauihi. The first year was won by Tokomanoa, who I think have made the final all 3 times, but they've lost the next 2 finals because Northern Kahu won last year. Now Tauranga Whai have won this year. So we've had 3 separate champions and 3 separate seasons. So that's some nice competitive balance as well.
So the 3 Kiwis who played for the Whai, Dale went 3 from 6 in 3-pointers. Kurosami went 2 from 2. Smiler went 1 from 2, which to me rounds out at 6 from 9, which I guess is 66%. Is that roughly?
Yeah, 2/3 sounds
Yeah,
about right.
right. So
It's
that's
such a big percentage that they might as well be playing against the Breakers to be shooting that well from three, because that's normally what happens in those games.
that is pretty efficient contributions from the Kiwis and just shooting 3-pointers nicely. So shout out to them. And it was interesting what you're saying there, like the Tauihi being at the same time as the Australian NBL, but then Tauihi can still get overseas professionals who, in theory, are choosing Tauihi over the Australian NBL. Now, obviously, the Australian
And a
NBL
lot of
might,
Australian players as well.
yeah, so the Australian NBL might still be able to attract some big name overseas players, but you're telling me that there's Australians who are choosing to play Tauihi. There might be crossover, so they might be able to return to Australian NBL teams at the end of this, but they are choosing to partake in Tauihi at the expense of Australian NBL. And then you've got, I mean, all these international players. It's not like they're just coming from America. Like you got Chagas, who's been in a few Tauihi competitions. I think she's Argentinian. You got like Jay Park. There's a bunch of players from around
Korean international. Yep.
Yeah, there's a bunch of players from around the world who are choosing Tauihi over the Australian NBL. Is that something we should be tapped in with? Because if we're talking about Tauihi knowing what they are and what they do and their purpose in this competition, seems to be working if these international players are choosing to play Tauihi.
Yeah, from what I gather, the way that Tauihi's tried, the reason why they moved the calendar is to sort of set themselves up in this little pocket. It's definitely aiming more at WNBA than it is at Australian NBL than it used to. So they'll hype up the amount of ex-WNBA players that are playing. But I mean, we see that in the men's NBL where it's like, this guy played NBA. It's like, yeah, he played 30 minutes over 4 seasons kind of thing. Some of that stuff can be overrated, but it still shows a high level of import that they're being able to attract. And I think the idea is that they want to have this sort of short, self-contained season. They talk up the pay parity and stuff like this. So there's a lot of sort of like gender balanced kind of angle to how they're arranging the thing. But part of that is because it's a short, sharp season. It's not as long necessarily as the men's one, but it's that for a reason. They want to have this kind of 12 weeks plus a couple weeks of playoffs or whatever, so that players can fit in 2 or 3 professional gigs per season. So the idea is like you play Tauihi and then you go to Europe, play your season, then you come back and do that. Like you sort of, you have a couple of teams each year kind of thing, in which case you get a couple of paychecks and that kind of thing. So, and it's definitely aligning to where players could finish this and then go try to get into the next WNBA season, which I think is probably a step too far. But, you know, you have ambitions for the future. If you build it up enough, you might well be able to get players in their off season coming down as the reputation grows. And one thing I think the reputation definitely is good. When you hear the players talking about, it's like often, and I could imagine exactly why this would be the case with a lot of female athletes across all sports. Like often just the first barrier is, can you just like respect us as athletes? And the Tauihi League seems to do that. Like players appreciate that they get that and they don't feel like they're just there to play second fiddle to the men's team or whatever. They actually get in, decent pay rates and decent exposure and decent level of basketball, and more than anything, decent like human dignity. I guess, I don't know. It's respected. They're telling the players that they respect them, so that's the first step towards the players feeling respected. I think that helps quite a bit as well, especially because as much as that seems like the bare minimum, I think we all know that's not necessarily true in a lot of places around the world.
All of that is true, but I'm just thinking Tauihi versus Australian NBL. There are players that have chosen the Tauihi instead of this period in the Australian NBL. To me, that is very interesting, regardless of what competition they come from. And that's just a point I'd like to double down on. And yes, so congratulations to the Tauranga Whai, the Tauihi champions. Of course, we're from thenichecache.com, where you can read about Aotearoa sport. There's lots of yarns on our website that will be updated over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, next couple of months, because this is just what we love to do, is write about Aotearoa sport, talk about Aotearoa sport, and big up to everyone supporting us on our journey. You can join the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/EL Nichecache, our Nichecache. That's just a couple of dollars a month, straight through to Patreon, and then straight through to us and supporting our work. You can also sign up to the newsletter, which I talked about before, which is completely free, sent out tonight, Monday night, and then Friday night. But there's also an option to upgrade to a paid Substack subscription if you're feeling generous. And of course, you can make a donation through Buy Me a Coffee, which is always greatly appreciated, especially at this time of year. But of course, everyone's fighting their own battles. So big up yourself, no matter who you are, what you're doing around Aotearoa, and maybe you're around the world if you're tuned in Ghana. Big up to everyone listening in Budapest. Shout out to everyone listening in Bogota. Maybe you're out there listening in Compton, I don't know, but big up to you listening to around the world, because you love Aotearoa and you love Aotearoa sport as well. Not sure about the bonus podcast that we deliver for the folks on Patreon and Substack every week. Obviously, this Thursday will be Boxing Day, so not sure if we'll be able to do a bonus podcast then. To be honest, not sure if we're going to be able to do a bonus podcast over the next 2 weeks. But if you are a member of the Patreon, if you do have a paid Substack subscription, feel free to ask us any questions. Get in contact with us if there's something specific you want us to do, me to do, Nick to do, and we'll see what we can do over the next 2 weeks just to make sure we're showing the love back to the generous folks who fund our mahi on Patreon and Substack. And of course, big thanks to a couple of folks who have bought us a coffee over the last few days and week as well. I think it's mindfulness time.
Yeah, righto. Bit of mindfulness. I stumbled on this quote accidentally. I didn't go looking for a mindfulness quote. I found it and then thought I might repurpose that, because it is is a lovely special time of the year, around the holiday period. It's also a very frustrating, overly commercialized time of the year. So a little bit from Terence McKenna here, who said three nice simple rules here. Don't buy shit you don't need. Don't hate people you don't know. And most importantly, don't spend your precious time on Earth consuming garbage styled as entertainment.
That is...
It's a little less spiritual than usual, but I think there's some crossover.
That's a Zion Mai'u running it straight up the guts at Mount Smart type of thing. I like it. Nice stuff. And that is my new modern legend of the Mount Smart. Like, we do have a bit of Alex Paulson running it straight at Mount Smart. Obviously, we go back. You got a Mark Tukey running it straight at Mount Smart. You got a Paliasina. You got a Ruben Wiki and so on. But I'm hyping up the Zion Mai'u run it straight at Mount Smart. And you did exactly that. And I agree. I concur. And then I will add, as we wiggle into some musical selections, one of my favorite projects recently has been Wi-Fi and their project Slow Down World. First and foremost, anyone telling me to slow down, I'm all ears. I'm always listening to someone to tell me to slow down because I want to slow down. And any reminder to slow down, rest up, is welcome. On the old Bandcamp page for Wi-Fi via Noah Records, shout out to Rahana Tito Taylor, who is Wi-Fi. The last sentence in the description is, this album is born of a gentle karanga towards rest, reunification, simply for knowing. For those learning today, like myself, karanga is formal call, ceremonial call, welcome call. So it's basically, this album is I'll just repeat it. This album is born of a gentle karanga towards rest, reunification, simply for knowing. So Wi-Fi is telling me, telling you, telling us that this is a gentle call towards rest and reunification, both of which I'm all here for, simply for knowing. I can't necessarily interpret the last bit, simply for knowing. That's open to interpretation. But again, this album is born of a gentle karanga towards rest, reunification, simply for knowing. So Wi-Fi is telling me to slow down. Wi-Fi is telling me to rest, to unify with the beautiful people of Aotearoa and the world under the umbrella of knowing. So shout out to Wi-Fi, love their song, their tracks, their project, Slow Down World, especially Relax and Slow Down, two bangers. Also been listening to Mokatron and their project Wairea, which is another Te Reo project full of insights, information, wisdom from the depths of the Māori world, better description from themselves, delivering 9 tracks of pure dark Māori bass. Does it get any better than that? Pure dark Māori bass. Love it. Mokatron is a bit drum and bassy, a couple of reggae kind of vibes there, and it's a little bit of dubstep wobble. If I'm not an expert on that, but I sense it. So Mokatron, if you're out partying, if you need some up tempo jams, chuck on Mokatron Wairea over summer. If you do want to slow down and just kind of vibe out, Wi-Fi goes hard. And then I've talked a lot about the God for Him and his collaborations with Nicholas Craven, 4 projects over the last few weeks, all of which are bangers. Check them out. Your musical jam as we end 2024 is?
Well, now, what am I going to go for here? There was a new Phaser Days album called Soft Power, which is an extension from the excellent EP that she did a couple years ago, I think late 2022. So been working steady on that ever since, I would imagine. And yeah, it sounds like a sort of, dreamy, sun-glazed kind of Phaser Days album, the way that all their other stuff has, but maybe with a little bit more of an evolution as well, to where the production's a little bit bigger, or the songs are a little bit bigger. It's she referred to it as bedroom stadium was the genre she mentioned, and I think also in the Bandcamp write-up, although the Bandcamp write-up's just the what do you call them? It's just the PR bit that gets sent to everyone, but still, good stuff. Somehow that seems like it doesn't make sense. It sounds like an oxymoron, the bedroom stadium sounds, but you listen to the album, you kind of see that it does. What else have I been listening to from around the place? Absolutely. I can't remember when the last time we did a tunes thing, so I might be repeating some ones that I've mentioned before, but Billy Strings' Highway Prayers is fantastic. Name a Box Below a Massive Dark Land as well, fantastic. And then kind of randomly, I believe this might also be a shout out to Bandcamp, because I think I found this one on there as well. There's a band called Etran de l'Air, which I think means I don't think I've written it down here. It means Stars of the Lair region, which is somewhere in the country of Niger, which is a desert rock album, I'll say. They play like multiple guitars, loud, twangy, but very, very groovy, with sort of their own kind of funky rhythms underneath. Similar to another band I like quite a bit called Imdu Mokhtar, where they're from a similar part of the world. They play similar kind of like deserty rock and roll in a way that you kind of don't hear anymore from America or England, where this kind of idea probably stemmed from. And yeah, Etran de l'Air, the album is called 100% Sahara Guitar, and that's exactly what it is. It's just absolute banger, like one of the grooviest albums I've heard all year from just a completely unexpected source.
We are recording this just before the White Ferns start their 3rd and final ODI against Australia, and also a New Zealand 11 are about to start a T20 game against Sri Lanka, the touring Sri Lankan team. And we just got a Blackcaps T20 and ODI squad, plural squads, for their series against Sri Lanka. So, and of course, we've got Super Smash cricket coming up. The Blackcaps squad to face Sri Lanka. Let's go through it name by name. Mitchell Santner, Michael Bracewell, Mark Chapman, Jacob Duffy, Zach Fox in for the T20s, Mitch Hay, Matt Henry, Bevan Jacobs in for the T20s, Tom Latham, Big Donny ODI status. ODI only status. Daryl Mitchell, Will O'Rourke ODIs only, Glenn Phillips, Rachin Ravindra, Tim Robinson T20s only, Nathan Smith, Will Young ODIs only. This squad mixed in with the New Zealand 11 that is currently playing. Of course, the New Zealand 11 also has Bevan Jacobs in it. So Bevan Jacobs has got some overlap between these two squads, and that's good T20 stuff for Bevan Jacobs. I think we're talking on Thursday, where I said that Bevan Jacobs will play for the Blackcaps this summer. You seem to disagree. First squad of the summer, we got Bevan Jacobs in a T20 squad. So the youngsters involved in this white ball tour against Sri Lanka: Zach Folks, Mitch Hay, Bevan Jacobs, Will O'Rourke, Rachin Ravindra, Tim Robinson, Nathan Smith. That is a very exciting group of young Kiwi cricketers. But then you go into the New Zealand 11, and it's equally as exciting. Obviously, you got Bevan Jacobs and you got Joe Carter. Joe Carter, veteran for Northern Districts, who is captain of the New Zealand 11. He hasn't played this summer yet. And he is joined by Henry Shipley and Ben Lister in playing their first proper major top tierish game of cricket this summer for the New Zealand 11. So that's good for them. The other players in this New Zealand 11: Adithya Ashok, Muhammad Abbas, Matt Boyle, Kartine Clark, Christian Clark, Matt Fisher, Callum McLaughlin, and Raunag Kapoor. Kapoor is the only player who has not played top-tier major domestic cricket yet.
Hence why he's the only one in that squad I'd never heard of and was going to ask you about.
Exactly. He is a Hong Kong international.
Not the first to play for the Blackcaps.
And he's actually quite similar to Mark Chapman in the sense that he is, I think he's a bit more hearty Hong Kong. He's a bit more of a Hong Kong trooper. So I'm not 1,000% sure that he is going to pursue Aotearoa eligibility. He may do. But he grew up in Hong Kong and had a year or two maybe at Christchurch Boys High School. So like Mark Chapman, he is a Hong Kong international. Geez, just had a bout of hay fever or something crazy just coming in there. Need to do another sniff, hold on. The Kapoor, Mark Chapman went to school at King's College in Auckland. Kapoor went to Christchurch Boys High School in Canterbury, and he has been playing for Sydenham in Christchurch. Bit of a spinner, couple of yarns, said that he's thoroughly involved when like opposition teams are touring New Zealand, like he'll bowl to them and whatnot. And now he is in this New Zealand 11 squad as a young spinner alongside Adithya Ashok. And this is kind of interesting because I have talked about the lack of young spinners in New Zealand. Like we do have Tim Pringle, another player who has represented a different nation. He is a Netherlands international, but he hasn't played this summer. So when I was kind of forecasting my Blackcaps teams, the test team specifically, I was comfortable, and I still am comfortable in putting the spin responsibilities on Mitchell Santner and Ajaz Patel. Then you got a bit of Glenn Phillips. Like, I just want reliable, mature lads in those positions. And I would suspect, like Adithya Ashok, very good leg spinner who's on the rise. So he's in this team. He deserves to be in this team, the New Zealand 11. I suspect, well, Kapoor lives in Christchurch, and this game, I think, is played at Lincoln. So it's nearby. So he's around. But I also think there is an opportunity to give a young spinner this opportunity alongside Ashok. Now, Kapua hasn't played for Canterbury yet. So they obviously see potential in him, but this is at a time where there is like a bit of a lack of young spinners. Auckland, like Super Smash coming up, right? You got Ashok at Auckland, but you also got Louis Delport. Northern Districts, you got the Walker brothers. Santner plays for ND. There's not necessarily a young spinner there, aside from Pringle, who is out injured. Central Districts are going to have Jaden Lennox and Ajaz Patel, two older, mature players. Wellington, Peter Younghusband, another older, mature player. Canterbury, Michael Rippon, Ish Sodhi. Otago, that's where it gets a little bit interesting because you might have Ben Lockrose as a very powerful hitter in the Super Smash and a good left arm spinner, I believe. Otago has been using Dean Foxcroft as a spinning all-rounder, and the leg spinning Cumming. I think it's Zach Cumming. I think Jacob Cumming is the opening batter, and Zach Cumming is the leggy. So watch out for the spinners in Super Smash, but that just kind of offers some context around the selection of Raunag Kapua. But I kind of think it's just more of, he's in Canterbury, they're playing in Canterbury, he's a good young spinner, they give him the opportunity. So I don't want to read too much into it, especially when like you've got Kartene Clark, who has been out of form for almost over a year. You've got Cullen McLaughlin, who's a good young wicketkeeper, but he's not necessarily dominating domestic cricket right now. Muhammad Abbas is in, he's a fantastic young player, not in dominant form right now. You got those lads, but then you've got Matt Boyle, who is in good form. Matt Fisher is in good form. Ben Lister, Shipley coming back from injury. So it's an interesting squad for the New Zealand 11, and they are just about to start their game against Sri Lanka. And it serves as a nice snapshot of Aotearoa's emerging talent. Then that was updated with the T20 and the ODI squads to play against Sri Lanka, where you have an excellent crew of young players, as well as settled, established Blackcaps, Santner, Bracewell, Chapman, Duffy, Matt Henry, Tom Latham, Daryl Mitchell, O'Rourke, Phillips, Ravindra, Will Young. They're all in the squad. And what I was thinking about when we're talking Tauihi, all of this is happening at a time where we've got Kiwis in the Big Bash League. Adam Milne, Lockie Ferguson, Tim Seifert. Obviously, we got the casual contract brothers, the brethren, the casuals, Kane Williamson and Devon Conway, who are off to South Africa. One of them might not return. Who knows? We got blokes out injured. Kyle Jamieson still on the rehab trail. Ben Sears is still coming back from injury. So these squads and this kind of general view that we have of the Blackcaps right now, fascinating. I love it. You got a lot of young talent that deserves their opportunity across the New Zealand 11 and these squads to play against Sri Lanka.
Yeah, a few different things that spring out from that. I did look at the when I was looking through that, what do you call it? The New Zealand 11 team. So they picked 12 players, and one of them has never played first-class cricket, and the others are all sort of established, like New Zealand A kind of level players or pushing for that. And this is their sort of first, a couple of them is their sort of first glimpse of that kind of representation, but it's not out of the blue kind of thing. I did get the same idea of what was his name, Kapoor? So I did get the impression that he was probably there to be 12th man specialist fielder and gather up some experience from some players.
Well, it is
the direction he's aiming for, but
it's a tour game.
But it is a tour game, and therefore they might have played 12 people.
Well, it says here, Sri Lanka Tour in New Zealand T20 match, in brackets, 12 players.
Okay. Well, in that case, that first impression was wrong, and they have actually picked him to have a decent crack. So that'll mean it's not for stats. So that's always a little bit of a shame, because I do like to see it when you look through guys' records and then you see the teams they played for, and when you actually get like first class and list A, you know, milestones and stuff being added from these types of games. I think it puts the right kind of emphasis on them to make them a bit more competitive, rather than just the going through the motions to get ready for a tour. But of course, it is there not really in service of the New Zealand 11. It's there in service of the Sri Lankan team that's touring. So, as it is. That's all interesting. That's all fascinating stuff. The Blackcaps squad had a couple of little notables as well that really kind of stuck out. One of them, congratulations on the Bevan Jacobs dot. So wouldn't say I had it ruled out after he got the IPL gig. That did put him very much in the Blackcaps scene, but I wasn't expecting it quite so soon. But there you go, especially after I saw him in the development team, the New Zealand 11 team. It's like, well, he's probably in that instead of the other, but nah, sweet as, good. Just play heaps of T20 cricket. That's all cool stuff. Anything on Bevan Jacobs before I chuck out I think I got two other very interesting points from this squad, or three actually.
Well, it's just nice alignment. Like if you're like, yes, Bevan Jacobs, he kind of came out of nowhere to get the IPL contract, and there's a nice kind of bridge. Like he's going to play a tour game against Sri Lanka. That's a nice little step up from domestic cricket. Then he's going to get a little taste of international cricket against Sri Lanka. And I believe he is the only player in the New Zealand 11 who's then in the Blackcaps squad. So, and he is the freshest Blackcap. He is the newest Blackcap. So I do like the development process on offer here. Coming out of, because they've been playing Plunket Shield. So coming out of Plunket Shield, get a T20 tour game to your name, then step up for T20 internationals against Sri Lanka over the space of a week. It's a nice little elevator, nice little escalator for Bevan Jacobs in the Blackcaps pipeline.
It is, and for for him in particular, because we can see that he's on that elevator heading a few floors up compared to some of the other guys. But their time will come as well, and it's just a nice, like, I've said it a few times before, but when they cut the Plunket Shield down by a couple of rounds, it was a very obvious bummer. But then when they actually used that sort of resource to redistribute towards more New Zealand A and development type stuff, including some overseas tours, has proved to be a pretty useful thing for Kiwi cricket. And the way you see a lot of Blackcaps moving through, that elevator up one floor, might be floor one might be, I don't know, 19s cricket or something, and then floor two is domestic A's, and then up another step to domestic cricket itself, and then there's the New Zealand A and the development 11 type things, and then you've got maybe a cheeky Blackcaps away tour to Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or something like that. Then you got a home summer type stuff, and this is all good stuff.
Just the train spotter in me has to point out also that one of the floors is like Hawke Cup type of cricket.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know the names off the top of my head of these competitions, but you're playing, Bay of Plenty against Northland. You're getting Hawke's Bay against Canterbury Country or whatever it is, like North Otago versus these teams. Like that is another little step that is, who cares? Keep going.
Yeah, above club cricket but below domestic cricket kind of thing is a bit of a bridge there. Unless you are that Hawke's Bay team who the other day played with they had Neil Wagner and Trent Bolt in their team. So I don't actually know how they tracked in that game.
That's probably Bay of Plenty, not Hawke's Bay.
Sorry, Bay of Plenty, you're right, it was. Right. I got the Hawks Cup thing, I think, in my head there and merged the two somehow. Podcast things. What else was I going to say about that Blackcap squad? One player who isn't there, well, first of all, a bunch of players who are there, all from that test squad, and from the previous test squad, and from the previous test squad, from this big sort of, collision of test cricket that they've had recently. I was really expecting Daryl Mitchell, certainly. I considered it for Glenn Phillips, though he's a bit younger and a bit more of a just like quite an essential player in the limited over stuff. So I wasn't so certain about him. But I thought maybe Richard Ravinder as well might be another one who might be in for a break. Matt Henry certainly. It was just, no, they're basically all there except for the guys who have actual gigs playing in well, in fact, there's a level before. Again, there's a flaw between those flaws as well. Like, it's not that they've got gigs at overseas T20 things, it's that they don't have Blackcaps contracts currently. Those are the guys who aren't there, um, including Tim Southee isn't there, and there's no mention of him in the thing. So where he's initially said he was just retiring from tests and it was a sort of we'll see about the other stuff, which generally when they say we'll see means I'm probably retired from that as well. Like, they don't tend to hang on too much longer once the thought is in the head, kind of thing. But yeah, no Tim Southee in the squad and no mention of Tim Southee. I was talking about this with someone the other day who said that they heard him in a interview thing sort of implying that he was probably just going to stop playing all cricket, but I didn't see that and I couldn't find that, so I don't know if that's true or not. But it is probably worth noting that he's not there and maybe has just taken a break, or maybe he might just be done from all forms of international cricket. We'll find out. I don't know. It felt like a big farewell thing in the last one, but then I don't know that he's ever actually officially retired from this other stuff. Of course, one guy who is taking a big break for this series after a big hectic run of test cricket and a few away tours, kind of the only one who's taken a break is Gary Stead. Gary Stead's having a little rest up, which means that Luke Ronchi takes over as the main coach, which means that batting thing has been left open. And who's taken over the temporary batting coach status for this tour? It's Craig McMillan, the wizard, the man who rebuilt the confidence of the White Ferns batters. Now going to try to do the same thing with the Blackcaps, who oversaw the Blackcaps' best ever period of test batting while he was the coach of while he was the batting coach previously with this team, who therefore won't be in the commentary box, unfortunately. So we'll have to make up our own what a shots that is. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of what a shots that is, given his record as a batting coach, and he is stepping in temporarily as Luke Ronchi's replacement, so that Luke Ronchi can be Gary Stead's replacement just for this cheeky little Sri Lankan tour. So it's a few little sliding doors. I was really expecting a lot more rests and rotation stuff from the test squad, but in the end, the only ones we got are the guy who's retiring and the coach. So what do you know? And of course, the two non-contractees who are going to South Africa.
Craig McMillan being the Blackcaps batting coach now, at least for this series, probably means he's not the White Ferns batting coach right now, which means that it's understandable that the White Ferns batting might go back to being mediocre.
Didn't think of that, but yeah. Although, I mean, he might just be able to go, because it's a 3 ODI series against Australia, or are there more games after this?
Because otherwise they finish today. I'm just having a
Well, they finished today, and then he picks up with the Blackcaps, but maybe he had his eye on other things.
Like, I don't think the White Ferns are that good at batting against Australia, so I don't think he's there, aside from Bella James, and I will talk about that in a jiffy, but obviously the White Ferns are just about to start their game. You're talking about rest. I mean, they've had 2 weeks off. Like, what else do you want to do? Like, they finished the test at the start of last week. They'll start these T20s on Boxing Day, maybe?
Yeah,
on
I think
Saturday.
So.
That's 2 weeks. Like, what kind of resting do you want? They've just had 2 weeks
It's not what resting I want, it's what resting they usually want. But I guess they do prioritize the home stuff. So
this is the thing. Everything has changed. Because the way we assess that Blackcaps rotation policy was when there was a lot of senior players, when the team was very settled. So we can't take forward those ideas. We can't assume, what we're talking about, the Blackcaps culture and giving players faith and all this stuff. That comes from a previous cultural era, a previous era of Blackcaps cricket.
Previous selector as well.
And now we have a situation, speaking of a new era, where who cares about the players that aren't there? Like, there's a lot of players in the BBL. You got players going over to South Africa. A lot of the... I was going to say something more aggressive. A lot of the cricketing media, a lot of the New Zealand media will talk about the players who aren't here. The players who aren't playing Super Smash. The players who are not playing for the Blackcaps. Who cares? Because I look at this Blackcaps team and we have a lot of young talent. We have very good cricketers playing for New Zealand. That's all I care about. There's high level, like all the players you're thinking about resting, who have had 2 weeks rest, they're here and they are ready to represent New Zealand. Okay, we don't have Adam Milne. Okay, we don't have Lockie Ferguson. I mean, we got Will O'Rourke. We got Nathan Smith. Henry Shipley's coming back. Ben Lister's coming back. Who knows? Kyle Jamieson bowled a few overs as well. Okay, we don't have Tim Seifert. All right, whatever. Okay, Devon Conway, the best batter in the whole wide world. He's ditched his Blackcaps contract to go play in South Africa. That's a bummer. Yeah, we've got a 22-year-old who just got an IPL contract and absolutely smashes the ball. And after that, he's consistently churned out Plunkett Shield runs. Anyone listening, and I'll say it even stronger to you, Nico. Who cares about
prepare myself?
Who cares about the players who are not here? The moment you I just want players who want to represent New Zealand. Yes, it's a fascinating world of cricket where you got T20 franchise opportunities and some this is the chat that you just hear all the time in the White Ferns commentary about the changing T20 landscape and all this stuff. More relevant for the White Ferns, but in the case of the Blackcaps, there are players here, very good cricketers who I love. Zach Folks, Mitch Hay, Bevan Jacobs, Will O'Rourke, Tim Robinson, Nathan Smith, Will Young, and so on and so on. They want to represent New Zealand. They are here to represent New Zealand. And they are very good. Maybe Will O'Rourke is better than Lockie Ferguson, because he's just as good as Kyle Jamieson. Maybe Bevan Jacobs is just better than Devon Conway. The point I'm trying to make is I am challenging myself to release how I was thinking about Blackcaps cricket. I'm challenging myself to embrace new ways of Blackcaps cricket. And it's evident throughout this whole squad that will play against Sri Lanka, and it's also evident throughout this New Zealand 11 that is full of Aotearoa's best emerging talent. Oh my gosh, Adam Milne, Lockie Ferguson, they're the fastest bowlers New Zealand's ever had, and they stopped get their Blackcaps contract. Well, Matt Fisher's getting opportunities as well, you know, and he's coming up after Will O'Rourke. We got Ben Sears waiting. Oh my gosh, we need a lefty. Ben Lister's right there. Oh my gosh, we need another 2-meter seamer. Where are they going to come from? Henry Shipley's there, Kyle Jamieson's there, Will O'Rourke's there. You know, there's a lot of talent, but it's also nicely mapped out through these teams. And I'm pretty excited for this little phase of this tour of Sri Lanka, just because of the mix of talent that we have here. Most of the youngsters are in the T20 squad. Folks, Jacobs, Tim Robinson, very aggressive opening bat. Oh my God, Fennellan. Where's Fennellan? The demise of New Zealand cricket, Fennellan. He gave up his Blackcaps contract. Tim Robinson does the same thing. Might be less good right now, but he does the same thing, and he only wants to represent New Zealand. This is something else, just again playing into the anxiety of cricket, the cricketing world. no one really cares what you're up to in your T20 leagues. Like, there's not a lot of Kiwi sports fans who are checking scorecards around the world. Yeah, sure, BBL, it's a Kiwi-friendly time slot over summer. It's good for the Kiwi viewing experience, so you might catch a bit of BBL. There aren't a lot of people who are going to be checking up on SA20 scorecards and how those lads are going in South Africa.
Can't say I paid too much attention to Jimmy Neesham and the Nepalese Premier League or whatever it was that he just wrapped up. So,
like, there is a relevancy, and we joked about it on Thursday. You're not a Blackcap until you play for the Blackcaps in New Zealand, because a lot of people aren't necessarily watching the overseas tours. But it's also like, the moment you embrace and get into that T20 landscape, yeah, sure, you're making money. Yeah, sure, you're learning and growing and traveling the world. Like, for you personally as the player, it's cool. But Kiwi cricket fans don't really care. Kiwi cricket fans are most tuned in to who's playing for the Blackcaps and who's performing in New Zealand over the Super Smash and domestic summer. So now, the most relevant Kiwi cricket thing is the Blackcaps series versus Sri Lanka. It's probably going to get bigger crowds than some of those BBL games. Smaller stadiums, but you might get bigger crowds, because these games are going to be packed out with Kiwi cricket fans, and they're going to be fizzed up to see Zach Folks bouncing dudes out at 135 kilometers per hour. They're going to be fizzed up to see Bevan Jacobs just smashing the ball everywhere. There's this kind of relevancy that is like, when you get into that T20 world, you become irrelevant. And those dudes have now been replaced by guys who I think are better, and they are desperate to play for New Zealand. So I'm excited. I'm fizzed up. Do you have any more men's cricket, Blackcap stuff that you want to quiz me on, ask me about, or drop your own ideas?
well, just further to what you're saying there about the sort of irrelevancy of once you hit that T20 circuit, arguably it sort of came a little bit before that for a couple of these guys as well, because there's 8 players who are mentioned in the press release by New Zealand Cricket as being unavailable for whatever reason. Ben Sayers and Kyle Jamieson, it's because of injury, so scratch those. That's not anything. They can't play. Kane Williamson is his own unique case, and I think we know that situation. No dramas. Although maybe there's a little bit of wraparound, at least in the T20 format, of is Kane Williamson still a first 11 T20 player specifically in that brand, in that I almost said brand of cricket. I'm going to slap myself for that. In that form of cricket was something we talked about a little bit after a pretty disastrous T20 World Cup. And also you have to, at this point, consider that within the lens of him trying to prolong his career as well. If he's going to drop one, it's going to be the T20 stuff. But he has his own case, so we'll take him separately. The other players mentioned, Devon Conway. What's been the prevailing narrative of Devon Conway over the last 12 and maybe 24, maybe even 36 months?
He sucks.
He sucked, yes. He's been not scoring very many runs across any of the formats. He's kind of struggled pretty much since the ODI World Cup more specifically, but even before that there were signs. Lockie Ferguson. I remember a point of Lockie Ferguson where suddenly he wasn't taking that many wickets. I can't remember whether it was ODI. I think it was ODIs leading up to the ODI World Cup. He had like a 12-month period where, yes, in and out with injury, probably the main factor, but also wasn't taking as many wickets as he once was. Finn Allen, very hit or miss, had a terrible T20 World Cup. Sort of, I won't say he dropped off necessarily. I'd say he never quite found the consistency. Well, that's kind of the same thing in its own way. Adam Milne, a little bit more because of injuries, but he's had so many injuries that he's always in and out of the team. Never at any point being able to be just like a regular for an extended period of time because he's always hurt. And Tim Seifert, he's been selected, he's been dropped, he's been recalled, he's been dropped. You know, he's not been... Like, none of these guys were deserving of undisputed first 11 or even first 15 kind of like tournament squad, like extended squad kind of selections. None of them were guaranteed that based on their performances. All of them had wobbles. And then they jump on the T20 circuit as their wobbles are happening or just after their wobbles are happening. I don't think that's coincidental either.
And when they do that, the cricketing media, the New Zealand media, tells us how detrimental and concerning it is for New Zealand cricket. When that's not the case. That is not the reality. Now here we are, excited for a very interesting phase of Kiwi cricket. And just to lay this out further, here's the seamers who are either injured or New Zealand 11 or the Blackcaps squad. We got Matt Henry. Got to write him down.
You've probably been the best one, so yeah.
Matt Henry, Zach Folks, Nathan Smith, Will O'Rourke, Ben Sears, Kyle Jamieson, Henry Shipley, Ben Lister, Matt Fisher, and then I've got a tier below where Christian Clark sits. Because he doesn't quite have the X factor of Matt Fisher. What do we got there? 9 seamers. Let's add in Christian Clark, that's 10 seamers. I can form a very good New Zealand bowling attack from those 10 seamers.
You could form a very good bowling attack, one in each format from those 10 seamers without having any overlap. You could have them all 3 games. You could have a T20, an ODI, and a Test match starting at the same time and still have a good bowling attack in each of them.
To be honest, I can put Mitch Hay in that group and I've got a team.
Yeah, here you go.
Because Zach Folks is good at batting, Nathan Smith's good at batting.
Zach Folks is opening.
Henry Shipley's good at batting, Kyle Jamison's good at batting. Christian Clark's good at batting. So I got 5 or 6 batters. Mitch Hay is the wicketkeeper.
Will O'Rourke, your night watchman.
And 10 of those dudes are very good bowlers. That is the depth we're talking about with New Zealand cricket and the Blackcaps. And that New Zealand 11 had me excited anyway. I was like, wow, this is a cool team. Then we get the Blackcaps squad and I'm like, whoo, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. And I think Kiwi cricket fan, where are these games being played? They may pull
That's
up.
a good question.
Sri Lanka tour of New Zealand. Mount Maunganui, otherwise known as Tauranga, where the Tauranga Whai come from. 2 games at Bay Oval. Saxton Oval, Nelson. Last time the Blackcaps were playing in Nelson, packed crowds for a random game against Bangladesh. Basin Reserve, Seddon Park, Eden Park. We got 3 T20s and 3 ODIs. Weather permitting, these 6 games will have monster crowds. They will be major entertainment. Because Kiwi cricket fans, we don't have any more Test cricket. So if you're in Nelson, you're getting along to that game because it's one of your 1 or 2 games you're going to have this summer. Eden Park, Auckland, perhaps the worst major city for cricket in New Zealand. Eden Park's going to be packed. It's going to be fun. Blackcaps versus Sri Lanka. Might try do a preview tomorrow. Also got the White Ferns playing. Also got Super Smash. Also want to write about the Bulldogs NRLW squad. So we'll see how we go over the next few days. But stay tuned. Got a lot of yarns coming on our website, thenichecache.com. And speaking of which, we do have the White Ferns playing their 3rd ODI against Australia. Australia is currently batting. And I just want to have a quick word about Bella James because she opened the batting for New Zealand in the second game. And I've literally typed this out for Nathan Smith, Will O'Rourke, Zach Folks, Mitch Hay, all these dudes, and just how comfy they look in international cricket. They look like international cricketers. Bella James looks like an international cricketer. She looked comfortable in her 33 deliveries against Australia. 27 runs at a strike rate of 82. Couple of fours and a 6 on the pull shot. She got out to a leading edge, caught at like a mid-wicket running back, so it was a bit unlucky. But considering how the other White Ferns have batted this year, have batted in the World Women's Championship, that was a very exciting start to Bella James's international career. Everything I've seen of her in HBJ Shield was there on display in her 33 deliveries against Australia. And this is something I wrote in today's newsletter. This year in ODIs for New Zealand, 17 players have played, 16 have batted. There's only 4 who have strike rates over 80. Bella James has started her career as one of them. So we've got Leah Tahuhu and Jess Kerr, who are both over 100 strike rates, and they're averaging 15 and 9.8 respectively. Sophie Devine's got a strike rate of 94, averaging 41 this year. So that's very impressive for Sophie Devine. Like everyone else, these are the batters who are below 70 strike rates ahead of the third ODI against Australia. Brooke Halliday, Amelia Kerr, Maddie Green, Susie Bates. Plymouth is 70.5. Izzy Gay's 66. Lauren Down is batting down the order for the White Ferns in what must be some sort of attacking finisher role. This year she's got 44 runs, averaging 8.8 with a strike rate of 45. Lauren Down's faced 98 deliveries and she's hit 3 fours. Bella James hit 3 boundaries in 33 deliveries. Lauren Down has hit 3 boundaries in 98 deliveries. I don't know how the third ODI is going to play out, but Bella James in her first game for New Zealand showed that she can add something to the White Ferns. She can add value to this team just by being confident. She looks confident with her strokes. She's aggressive, and there's just so much intent chat. I just want to play with intent, as opposed to what? You got no intention behind your actions? You're just doing it willy-nilly? You're just playing a forward defensive because you got no intention? You're just having a swing because you got no intention? Everyone plays with intent. I'm recording this podcast with the intent to talk shit about New Zealand sport. So just chill out with the intent, whatever. But Bella James looks confident. She looks excited. She looks aggressive. There aren't many other White Ferns right now who look that confident. And Bella James showed it in her first game. And I think she's going to be someone to watch out for in the Super Smash coming off this White Ferns action. Because she could just dominate the Super Smash. Of course, it's cricket, so it might go the other way. You never know. As mentioned earlier, the Wellington Phoenix women were the only Kiwi A-League team to get a win after heavy defeats for Auckland FC and the Wellington Phoenix men. So let's roll through the Wellington Phoenix women and their victory over Sydney FC. As we said, goals to Grace Jale and Zoe McMeekin.
Zoe McMeekin.
The rampaging right back who just seems to pop up everywhere on the field, usually not at right back, but that's what we love about Zoe McMeekin. What did you make of the Wellington Phoenix women victory over Sydney FC, who are now last in the A-League? Wellington Phoenix, 3 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, 10 points. They are 1 point ahead of Adelaide, and they are 1 point below Western United.
Well, I mean, the downfall of Sydney FC is kind of enjoyable. They're defending champions. They're always up near the top. This year, they just for whatever reason, I think it's one of those things where like if you're one of the best teams year on year in the league, like the A League, men or women, because I think there are elements of this about Central Coast who are a little bit sturdier. They're not, they're not sitting where Sydney are on the in the women's table, but there's elements of this as well where it's like, in fact, I think you can even say it about the Phoenix Blokes quite specifically too. Like if you're good, you sell your players because those players are in the shop window and your best players leave. They go on to bigger and better opportunities, which they have earned through their performances, which made you a good team. And then they leave, and the Phoenix have got to replace Finn Sermon with like Isaac Hughes and Corbin Piper and stuff, who I think everyone who's watched these games can see those guys are really talented footballers. But they did both make a mistake leading to goals that they conceded in the Western Sydney Wanderers game. So you can see the ways in which like the passing of the baton isn't always a smooth thing. You've got players who are performing at the top level and then they leave, and then suddenly you've got to replace them, and the guys maybe might need an extra year or so to settle in to get back to the levels that you were before. Maybe some of that's gone on with the Phoenix. We'll see how they go in the men's A League, but it's definitely happening with Sydney FC and the women's A League. And one of the things that, like, because one of the players who left since last year was Jada Wyman, who their goalkeeper, who's been very good for several seasons. They replaced her with Brianna Edwards, Phoenix reserve goalkeeper from the last couple of years. Brought her in, made her the starting goalkeeper. You might notice we didn't actually see her, though, on the game on the weekend. That's because after about 3 weeks ago, she got the Ollie Sale treatment and they dropped her because the team wasn't playing very well. So frankly, like, it's harsh, but also if the team's not playing very well, nobody's beyond reproach, and something has to change, and it might not always necessarily even be the deserving players. So I didn't watch enough of their games to know if she was playing fantastically or terribly or however it was playing out for them. I just know that their last few games have seen Talia Franco playing in goal. And it was Talia Franco who made the mistake not being able to make that save off the Grace Jale shot, which put the Phoenix in front and changed the course of what was a pretty even game, which could have gone very much either way. Especially in the first half, I thought Sydney were really quite good, and the Phoenix showed a few wobbly signs in defense. For a good defensive team, there are a few instances where it's like those aren't good defensive team things to be doing. There's like second chance efforts and things like this where they're just a little bit hesitant.
Berry had a few mishaps.
Yeah, she did, and she wasn't alone in that either. So there was some sketchiness, which they did quite well to get out of there at 0-0. Frankly, at half time, they could have been 2-0 down. However, then the rain came. The rain actually started falling before the half was done. It was bucketing down. The players like ran off the pitch. It was like, I don't know if they still count that on like the GPS stats when they're recording, but there would have been like 22 sprints. It just got added at the point of 47 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, it's rain, but it's also like that's what they do. Like you watch a rugby game, no one walks off the pitch at halftime.
No, but you jog off. You don't sprint off.
I don't know. You watch the All Blacks; they're sprinting off the field as fast as they can.
I think that does happen more in, yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe the All Blacks are just weird. But the All Blacks are weird about some things. That might be one of them. I don't get that impression as much from football.
But I don't think like any professional athlete who plays an outdoor sport is trying to get out of the rain. You know, like they know they have to get back in the rain, so they're not too worried. But that's just
they didn't have to get back in the rain. Because that's the thing, is that it was raining so heavily that the game got postponed for 45 minutes, which was interesting alignment because the games overlapped with the Auckland FC game. So because that one got delayed, they overlapped even more than they were going to, which meant, double screening it. So it goes. That's the job. But yeah, Paul Temple said that he used it was like 45 minutes, I think I said, a 45-minute break to like look back at some of the highlights and watch a lot of the first half back and really figure out a few things that they could fix, which has got to be super convenient for a coach. Like, what better can you ask for? Because they did. they were much better in the second half. They took control of the game. I was skeptical of whether they'd find a goal for it, but they did, and they got it through a little bit of a goalkeeping error. It was a good shot from Grace Jarley, and when it's been pouring with rain, you like those shots that bounce just in front of the goalkeeper and skid on a little bit, and they're tricky to handle. So it was pretty obvious that that ball just it got to Franco a little bit quicker than she intended, which is why she didn't get enough contact on it. It's still squeezed in. But, good hit from Grace Jarley. That was her first goal in more than a year in the A-League. So very much needed. I think her signing for the Phoenix was seen as like, quite a blockbuster one. They're bringing back a regular Football Ferns international and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I'm kind of sitting here thinking I don't want to use a word like overrated, because I think when people say overrated, they often just use it as a euphemism for saying this person sucks. Grace Jarley does not suck. Grace Jarley is a very good footballer, but Grace Jarley has struggled to find a sort of settled role in the A-League. She's played at a different club in each of her 4 years, I think it is. Phoenix in 2 different stints, but still. And she's played in a few different positions within that. And even with the Football Ferns, she's played in a few different positions. So while she's an established Football Ferns player, I'm thinking like, well, the next time we see the Football Ferns in action, like Hannah Blake didn't go to the Olympics and she's scoring goals at a good level in England. Maggie Jenkins is doing good stuff over in Turkey. And Gabby Rennie had a really good season there, so she's probably reinforced her status with the Ferns in Finland, her first pro season with Island United. There's a few other ones I could mention as well, like Chiara Braccelli. A lot of people probably don't even know Chiara Braccelli if they haven't watched the age grade stuff, but she's been starting regularly at Serie A in Italy. It's only like 3 New Zealanders who've ever played Serie A on the women's side, and only 1 on the men's side. Oh, shout out thenichecache. So, like, there's some good attacking players who were not in the mix, or at least not in the squad for the Olympics, who are coming in. Grace Jarley is not a settled Football Ferns selection. She needs to sort of knuckle down. And she's been in and out of the starting lineup for the Phoenix as well. She needs to. I stopped my sentence a little bit too early there when I said she needs to knuckle down. So she needs to put in it. No, she needs to find a role that suits when this Phoenix team gets some regular sort of extended starts and put some goal contributions in there. Here we go. She scored a lovely goal on this that helps set up a victory. So that's good stuff there. That's great development. She scored, I think, 3 goals in their first 3 games for, was it Perth last season? Yeah, Perth. It was Canberra. She went Phoenix, Canberra, Perth, then back to the Phoenix. So there's 3 goals in her first 3 games for Perth, and then didn't score again for the entire rest of the season. So very overdue for this goal. And hopefully it's the goalkeeping error that gets Brianna Edwards, an ex-Phoenix player and a Football Ferns. And so, yeah, she is an international. She played at the Olympic qualifying tournament, so she's got at least 1 cap. Get her back in a starting role for Sydney FC would be cool as well. I want to see the Kiwi players thriving and doing well. On that note, I'll mention that Kelly Brown scored, I think, a 96th minute penalty for Perth Glory, which don't think it was to win. I think it was to salvage a draw, but it was big moment. And Kelly Brown's the one who steps up to take the penalty. She scores it just. Kiva got a big hand to it, but she scored it, sweet as. And yeah, Zoe McMeekin can get a nice goal as well, header from a corner, which to your earlier point, not what you expect of a right back. But Zoe McMeekin is not what you expect of a right back in many different ways. So that was good stuff. They've tended to be better when they've had Lara Wall and Zoe McMeekin as their fullbacks as well. It's a sort of interesting note of the season so far. But so yeah, speaking of that season so far, 3 defeats to start in a row. And then since then, they've taken now 10 points from their following 4 games. They're up to 5th on the table. It's a 4-game unbeaten streak. 3 of those are victories. They're keeping some clean sheets. They're looking very good defensively. They're finding a way to score goals now, which is pretty helpful because, well, for obvious reasons. And they're playing quite good, cohesive footy. I think things are starting to click in a way for them, and have started to click in the last couple. It was a little bit of a sketchy start, terrible first half of their first game, but they've looked pretty solid recently, and they look pretty solid in a way where it feels like there's more to come as well as players get as build into their combinations even more, because we haven't actually seen a lot of good toil and graft from Olivia Ferguson up front, but we're not really seeing a lot of goal scoring chances yet. That'll come at some point. Maybe Tanaka has been very good when she's had moments. Olivia Kelly didn't even start this game, but she's got quality to come into the side at some point. Maya McCutcheon's been good from day one, so no dramas there. But Carolina Verhal is looking pretty sharp these last couple of games as well. She had a handy clean sheet there, so he's a good signs for the Knicks, who also have Amelia Abbott joining now, who was sort of known from the start that this would happen. She's a one cap Football Ferns international, but more probably famous for being part of the under-17 World Cup side that got their bronze medals in 2018. One of 6 or 7 or 8 players from that squad now who have gone through the Wellington Phoenix at some point. So there's a clear directive there, and she's now joined. She's finished up her college season in America, so be very curious to see what she can offer as a ball-winning midfielder. They've got a couple of those. Daisy Brazendale's had a very good season so far, coming out of the academy, originally from Nelson. Coincidentally, Amelia Abbott, originally from Nelson as well. So there you go. And they're getting a T20 against Sri Lanka soon. Great times from Nelson.
They're not as good as Maya McCutcheon, though. She's an absolute force in the midfield, and I don't want anyone taking minutes away from her.
Certainly not.
I also like Ferguson up front. Yeah, you want strikers who score goals, but you also want strikers who make the team better. You want strikers who make the players around them better. I just think Ferguson, she seems more robust than any other option up top, and that seems to give the Phoenix a bit more confidence, a bit more aggression, a bit more energy, and I think that creates chances elsewhere. And I think Maya McCutcheon is the best player in the team. I think Emma Main is the best New Zealand player in the team. Emma Main is just always energetic, vibrant. She's got a big boot. She's like one of the biggest boots in the team, if I can say that. And she always impresses me when she's playing for the Phoenix. So I want to shout out Emma Main because she has caught my eye, along with Maya McCutcheon, who is cut from the same cloth as Verstrata and Alex Roof. Maybe Maya McCutcheon's in between. Verstrata's just smooth and classy in that role. Roof is a bit more grisly, a bit more gritty, and to be honest, a bit more niggly with how he deals with the opposition players. Maya McCutcheon
shoving that dude over yesterday was...
Yeah, that's why I said it. Maya McCutcheon's in between. And I think that's what the Phoenix need, especially with their helter-skelter style of footy. So shout out to the Phoenix, one of the winning teams of the weekend.
Emma Main as well, definitely someone else who is in that list of players who might nudge Grace Jolly out of football, or not necessarily Grace Jolly, might just frame it as definitely one of those attackers from outside of the Olympic squad who will be pushing for a Football Ferns consideration when they next play, which is against Costa Rica, I think, in March. They've actually scheduled a few games now, which is nice because it will have been about 7 or 8 months since the Olympics by that point.
I get what you're saying about Grace Jolly being a Football Fern, but none of those spots are locked in. Like
exactly.
same with the Blackcaps stuff. Like there's fantastic players on the rise, and to be honest, for the Phoenix, I think Emma Main is better than Grace Jolly at the moment. But the one and only Bevan Jacobs has just right now. He is on 30 runs off 8 deliveries, 2 4s, 3 6s, strike rate of 375. So shout out Bevan Jacobs, just doing his thing for the New Zealand 11. And we had 2 teams who lost over the weekend. Auckland FC, Wellington Phoenix. Which loss was worse?
Auckland FC's, definitely, because A, it snapped a big old winning streak. B, it was at home, well, unbeaten streak because they drew last week. B, it was at home. C, they were just terrible. I don't know where this came from. Steve Corica said afterwards he felt they got complacent. And I think that's probably fair to say. I think there's also a tactical element there where they just kind of got they kind of just got blitzed from the start. Like it felt like they came up against a team that didn't let them settle into their groove and just extend the game out, put a stamp on it defensively, and then grow from there the way that they have done, to where, you know, that thing about how many of their goals have been scored late in games, it's because they grind teams down. Here they came up against an opponent that didn't let them themselves get ground down, and they absolutely missed Dan Hall at the back, like just as that big physical presence, sort of repelling things. Because a few of their goals have come down. The few of the goals they've conceded in the last two games have come down that side as well. That sort of right edge channel of the between centre back and full back, where yeah, you think you think the way they were going, the way they were tracking, the sort of foundation said set, maybe they'd be able to handle Dan Hall being out for 2 to 3 months, a little just as a next man up kind of thing. We'll deal with it. It might not be, there might be a little bit of a drop off, but the team can pick it up and sort of in the aggregate, as they say, which just doesn't seem to have happened at all. Like it's very clear that's going to be a big miss. And there is a transfer window, the mid-season transfer window opens in a couple of weeks. And now I'm thinking very much that they probably, especially a team like Auckland, I think would be the Phoenix in this situation, lean a bit more on just, we'll mix things up. We'll give some more academy guys a go. And we'll try to find a formula that works. I think Auckland are built a bit more to be like, especially because they don't have an academy system yet because they're too young for that. Built a bit more to be like, we'll have to sign someone. And to that point, I noticed this morning, no more Joey C. They've given him the flick, which I don't think will surprise anyone who's been asking, "Where's Joey Champness? Like, why did they sign this this renowned, quality A-League player of the past and the New Zealand international, and why is he not even getting into matchday squads?" Frankly, won't say that surprised me, because if you track his career since he left there, even before that, like he took a year off from football to go follow his musical dream in LA one time, comes back, does quite well, gets a gig over in Turkey, falls out with, well, that was a tricky one where he got like paid out he got released, but they didn't pay him out, and then he took them to court along with a few other guys and got a big payout. Conveniently didn't pop up on a football pitch after getting this big payout for like 8 months after that. Then he's back at another Turkish club, second tier, so a drop in caliber, but he's like, he has a couple of nice stints for them at the start, and then he gets injured, and then the Turkish team's talking about how he's not coming back from his injury, like he's just staying in Oz or New Zealand. Like there's been too many instances there in his career where it's been like, I'm not sure if this is really what you want to do. Like I'm just question the motivation a little bit.
Like, he's not there. Who cares?
Well, now he's gone for that reason. So, but also, we're talking about a player being released right before, or a little bit before a transfer window opens up, where they might well be trying to clear a spot in the squad to bring someone else in. So that's the point to make, is that's there might be a clue. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, the way they defended was pretty atrocious, and it set them up just for abysmal failure. It was a bad day, but yeah, you'd have hoped their first defeat would have been a little bit more competitive than that. It was just such a crumbling kind of mentally, which was what's frustrating about that. But then I guess the point whenever this kind of stuff happens is, how do you respond to it? You can have a bad day like this, but is this going to become a habit where they're going to struggle, or are they going to be like, okay, no, that we got caught off guard there, we need to recalibrate things and come back much better next week? Because we've seen how good this team can be. And that doesn't change because of one terrible defeat, but it would change if you start getting 2 or 3 terrible defeats in a row,
Phoenix also lost 4-1. They seem to have also had a bad day, and we don't need to go to we don't need the full breakdown of these losses. It just seems like they were thoroughly outplayed, and we'll see if it's a one-off or if it's just a blip on the radar or if it's something to be concerned about in the coming weeks. I am, though, thoroughly impressed with the ways in which Isaac Hughes finds a mishap. Like, he's doing... Because
it's a different one every week.
I talked him up, and I still think he's got a few good moments. Like against the Wanderers, he had his barnstorming run down the left, and he is like, he was playing pretty wide in that left back position, and we're talking about Nando Peineker's left boot. Isaac Hughes doesn't have that, so it does limit your passing options. He can pass with his left foot, but he doesn't have the accuracy, the power, the whip that Nando Peinecker has, so it does limit your passing options in the left side of the field. He did have
As you
that
saw at the end
barnstorming.
of that big barnstorming run where he then had to cross the ball on his left foot
Yes,
and
yes.
couldn't get it where he wanted it to go.
But it's impressive for a young player to. He's had the header into the own goal, he's had the handball for the penalty, and then he slipped over. Those are three completely different mishaps, and it's pretty stink for a youngster to do those mishaps. But welcome to professional football. And you might want some longer sprigs, you might want to get your hand out of the way, and you might not want to head the ball into your own net. I'm sure you'll learn those lessons and keep growing. I do see some similarities, like the Auckland FC, they have got a bit younger, just with absences, injuries. That grizzly, professional, mature, experienced team that I was talking about against the Wellington Phoenix and the Derbies, that's no longer the case. They do have a lot of those players on the field, but this team and the squad has got a bit younger, and you're seeing how difficult it can be when you're relying on those youngsters in key positions, as we've seen with the Wellington Phoenix. So I think the most important thing is the next round. And the next round is this weekend. Wellington Phoenix home to Newcastle Jets, Auckland FC away to Central Coast Mariners. Both those games Saturday, back to back, 5 p.m., 7 p.m. And bad day for the men's A-League teams, but we'll see how they bounce back and if it was a blip on the radar or if it's a part of a wider trend.
Well, with the Phoenix, that was their third loss in a row as well. So they're a little bit closer to that wider trend thing. But we did get to see a bit of Nathan Walker playing in an attacking position towards the end of that game, which he was really encouraging at. I thought he looked very good there, not playing as like a in his head, do your job kind of role, follow the coach's instructions to the letter, out as a wing back kind of thing. But actually in an attacking role, his more natural position where he's able to, play a little bit more of what he sees rather than what he sort of feels is the instruction. So I think that was a more freer Nathan Walker was pretty cool. And then also Luke Brooks-Smith getting his debut, youngest ever Phoenix player. I thought it was like a 15-minute cameo. Really funny how the Phoenix sub on Luke Brooks-Smith, and then like 2 minutes later, Western Sydney sub on Juan Mata, former Champions League winner with Chelsea, played for Manchester United. Might have even been part of the Spanish World Cup winning squad once upon a time. He's about that age, I'm not sure. That was kind of a funny contrast. But Luke Brooks-Smith as well, I thought showed some really, like, I won't say he's strong for an A-League player because the A-League is a very physical thing. Corbin Piper is strong for an A-League player. I think you saw that from Corbin Piper. He's big and physical. Luke Brooks-Smith is not strong for an A-League player, but he's strong for a 16-year-old. Bloody hell. He was shrugging dudes off and looking very much the physical part, and a couple nice touches. There was a nutmeg in there. I saw like there's good promising stuff from him as well. I've been waiting for this moment for him, and he didn't disappoint in little cameos, and that's I think also another reason why the Phoenix loss was a little bit more it had a few more encouraging signs in the Auckland FC one, which is very much about everything about them. It's just what can you do next week to make up for this. With the Phoenix, there were positives to take away, in part because of a couple of their younger players. I can't say academy players because Luke Brooks-Smith, not an academy player. They signed him straight to the first team from Hamilton. But yeah, a couple of those guys, some nice signs. Corbin Piper included as well. And even Hughes, I would say these guys, those two both made mistakes leading to early goals and also kept their heads for the rest of the game pretty well because the 4-1 scoreline was blown out a bit. I mean, they had it at 2-1 looking like they might get a comeback mid-half as well. So there's a bit more of that too. So yeah, another bad day at the office from the Phoenix, and there's been a couple of those in a row, but better signs probably from them, like glimpses of how they'll come out of this.
Case in point for the Wellington Phoenix, you got a core back three. Obviously, you got Tim Payne bursting up the right, you got Sam Sutton bursting up the left, but you got a back three, Isaac Hughes and Corbin Piper playing in the same back three. Like that is going to, it's exciting. It's a strong development thing, but it does make it hard to win A-League games if you're playing two young defenders in your back three, regardless of the experience you have around them, because, as you said, like Hughes slipped over and Corbin Piper had a turnover running into the middle of the field. which is a
Yeah,
terrible
Bree
place
really
to
should have just passed.
turn the ball over, as opposed to going out towards the sideline. He was trying to get back infield, turned it over, and then that led to a goal. But if you got two of those young emerging kind of first season and a half type of dudes in your back three, it's going to be tough, because I think maybe it was Western United. They might have had a 17-year-old at centre back.
He's young dude. I don't know exactly how old he was, but yeah.
But he's one dude.
Yeah.
If you got, maybe not teenagers, but if you got two young dudes in your back three, then it gets a bit tricky. So that's just where the Phoenix are at. And New Zealand Warriors women, they are starting to build a squad. But I need to introduce the Bulldogs women's team, as I tend to do, at the same time, because I'm going to talk about the Warriors squad, and I'm also going to talk about the Bulldogs squad quickly, and then get into some St Thomas of Canterbury updates. I need to introduce the Bulldogs at this time of the yarn, because everything the Warriors are doing, the Bulldogs are also doing. And everything the Bulldogs and the Warriors are doing, every NRLW team is doing. So you can look at the headlines and think, wow, the Warriors just signed another Black Fern 7 player. They signed a Black Fern. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, most of their players have rugby union backgrounds. Well, there's no headlines about Martha Mataali, former Black Fern, signing with the Parramatta Eels. There's not as many headlines about the Bulldogs building out their first NRLW squad, with almost half of their squad coming from Aotearoa, many of whom have similar backgrounds as the Warriors women's squad. So you can look at the headlines, you can look at the way this is delivered in the media, but know that the Warriors aren't doing anything unique here. There is the wrinkle, though, that the Warriors are able to sign players from Australia without any worries. We've seen this on the men's side. They just signed Sam Healy, young hooker from the Sharks. They were able to get Jet Cleary across the ditch. They were able to get Luke Hanson across the ditch. Luke Metcalf, another young half who moved to Aotearoa. There's the experienced lads, Kurt Capewell, Mitchell Barnett. But there's also the youngsters that the Warriors are able to recruit from Australia who want the opportunity to come to New Zealand, come to Mount Smart and represent the Warriors. The Warriors are able to do that as well. In their first couple of waves, they had Emanita Paki, who was a Queensland representative. In the third wave of signings, they had Emily Curtin, who was a young half, 23-year-old half from Australia. And Coach Ronald Griffiths talked about her defensive mindset. So that's going to be useful. I think the other Australian-based players, I think we got Falila Kia. She played with Griffiths at the Knights. So Griffiths is using his back-to-back NRLW championship pedigree with the Knights, as well as being an Indigenous All-Stars coach. He is able to recruit players from Australia. The third wave of signings, we got Michaela Eli, kind of a playmaker, edge forward from Manurewa, who was playing with the Manly Sea Eagles this year in New South Wales Women's Premiership. Kaylin Takitumu Cook, she came up through Manakura, played league for Richmond. I think she's an outside back. We got Peyton Takimawana, she was playing rugby for Bay of Plenty. I think she's going to be an outside back. Taisha Ikanasio, Black Fern Sevens, also played a bit of league for Richmond though. Think she's going to be an outside back. Michaela Blyde from Black Fern Sevens, from the Taranaki, Clifton Rugby. She could be an outside back, but I also think she might have a bit of halves mahi in her potential. We got Mariri Pukitapo from Te Araha in Wellington. I've got her as a small forward, utility forward. Lavinia Kitai, think she's an Australian. Middle forward, we got Lydia Turoa Quedle from Ponsonby. Bit of a half. Kaya Atai from Richmond, she's in the forwards. And Danny Gray from Mangere East, She's on a development contract and she's going to bolster the halves depth. There's a lot of outside backs, a few halves options, not many hookers. So I'm curious if one of the we might see one of the players I mentioned as a half. They might cover the hooker. But there is this idea about a lack of middle forwards for the Warriors at the moment. Maya Hill-Moana and Harata Butler are ruthless middle forwards that I think are going to be the cornerstones of this Warriors forward pack. Both are from Taniwharo in the Waikato. So watch out for those two. I think they are two of your three starting forwards in the middle are those two. And then you've got someone like Lyshawn Albert-Jones could play as a lock. You got Fotu Moalas who is a prop, and Matakino Gray is a lock edge forward as well. So the consensus I got with the feedback, people bouncing back to me about the Warriors squad, it did seem like there was a lack of middle forwards, but I think they're well stocked. Of course, you've got 10 more spots up for grabs, so you're going to add players. But the two players I'd watch out for, Maya Hill-Moana and Harata Butler. Hill-Moana, who knows what was happening with the Roosters at the end of the year, because she also dropped out of the Kiwi Ferns squad. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but she's a consistent NRLW Kiwi Ferns big bopper. And Harata Butler's just a ruthless forward who has gone the hard way to get opportunities with the Sharks and the Cowboys. But then we got the Bulldogs, who just signed Moana Courtney from North Harbour Rugby. So again, the Bulldogs, they signed a player from Rugby Union in New Zealand. So far, the Bulldogs squad, we have Alexis Tauihi from Wainuiomata, Angelina Tiakaranga Katoa's from Auckland, Saracen Olivers from Petone, Ma'atuleo Fotomawala's from Otahu, we got Shanice Monchel from Mount Albert, Shakayla Mahakita Monchel from St Peter's, Cambridge, Shannon Muru's from Mount Albert, Paya Uilo is from Katikati, who went to Auckland Girls Grammar, and Moana Courtenay from North Shore Rugby Club. That's, what do we got? 9 players right there. And I'd say conservative estimate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At least 5 of them played some form of rugby union in New Zealand. So I want to broadcast the fact that NRLW is making significant inroads into rugby union for women in Aotearoa. Given the state of how rugby union is being run in Aotearoa, I might also suggest that we are seeing the demise of rugby union in Aotearoa, especially on the women's side. But I will chill out and I'll just say that most of these players play a bunch of sports. They're multi-sport athletes. There were better opportunities in rugby union before, so most of them played rugby union. Now there are better opportunities in rugby league, so most of them are playing rugby league. That just seems more sensible than my dramatic hot takes. But the Bulldogs, they've got all that. Like the Warriors, a lot of them played rugby union. Most of the players from Aotearoa who the Bulldogs have recruited for their NRLW team next year, they also have rugby union background. So that's a crossover. But you've also got the fact that almost half of the Bulldogs squad is from Aotearoa. So that tells you about the status of women's rugby league in Aotearoa. Because 2 of them have played for New Zealand. Shanamuru was in a Kiwi Ferns squad, I think, and is a Tongan international. A few of them have played for Tonga, but all these players come from Aotearoa, but there's only 2 Kiwi Ferns, which means the Bulldogs are going deep into their Kiwi-NRL, NRL Wahine recruitment bag to sign these players. There was also a post from St Thomas of Canterbury College who listed all their players who have come through the school and are now in NRL clubs. So there's a few top tier lads, Jordan Ricky Broncos, we've got Oliver Lowry with the Seagulls, Felix Fa'atili and Richie Tupuaile from the Sharks. Josiah Ekihard Nelly is with the Storm. We all know Josiah Alatini, he's with the Bulldogs. But there's a couple of dudes. So Ezekiel Whangaiti and Jackson Stewart, they were in the Warriors system this year. Now Ezekiel Whangaiti is with the Knights. Jackson Stewart is with the Roosters. So the fact that those two dudes have been picked up by other NRL teams at the same time as we've got the Bulldogs setting up a partnership with Canterbury Rugby League, the Roosters setting up a base at Rolleston College, and we've also got Xavier Lynch. He is signed to the Knights. So the Knights have recruited a couple of players from St Thomas of Canterbury. The Sea Eagles also have Ezekiel Paulo from St Thomas of Canterbury. So you got the Bulldogs and Roosters who have set up some sort of a connection with rugby league in the South Island and Canterbury. But then we've also got the Knights and the Sea Eagles who have recruited players from St Thomas of Canterbury. And there's obviously other players who play rugby league who didn't go to St Thomas of Canterbury who are signed to NRL clubs. This is just the St Thomas of Canterbury bubble. So that tells us there's two clubs who have heavy-duty connections to rugby league in Christchurch, and there's two other clubs who have recruited players from the best rugby league school in Aotearoa from Christchurch. And then you've got the Roosters who have come in and signed Jackson Stewart, who is a very good outside back. You include, yeah. So that tells you that there's 3 or 4 different clubs who are aligned with the status of rugby league in the South Island. But you also got the Warriors, who have Lennox Tuiloma. They got Bishop Neal, 2 fantastic young rugby league players. The Warriors also have Jason Salalilo, who I think was in the train and trial group, Mehana Pauling, Micah Sula, Isaiah Savia, Kenny Lafituanai, Caleb Fidel, Cristiano Elia. Cristiano Elia is a very interesting one because he's a half who was in the under-16 New Zealand Rugby League schools team, but he was starting half for St Thomas of Canterbury. And the Bishop Neal was the only other dude who was in the under-16 team who was a big Donny for St Thomas of Canterbury. Most of the big Donnies were playing under-18s. So there's a lot of NRL clubs recruiting talent from Christchurch, setting up the links there. But you've also got the Warriors with 10 players from St Thomas of Canterbury currently in their system. So the Warriors are getting their fill. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about nothing because it's Christmas. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.